Well, I am very, very, first off, humbled to be here and appreciative to the Webflow team. My name is Ben Fletcher. I'm a partner at Accel. Accel is a global and leading venture capital firm. And so I have the unique opportunity to give the perspective of Webflow and the journey of Webflow over the last 7 years, as we've been fortunate enough to be partnered with Vlad, Bryant, Sergi, and Linda, and the full Webflow team, and seen their progression over what I would call a pretty hectic backdrop of capital markets and economy and everything that we've been seeing that's been going on in the world. But I wanted to start by saying, if I would have looked back 7 years ago when we partnered with the team and known that it would have turned into the company that it has today, I just would have never believed it. And when you come to these in-person conferences, it's amazing to be able to see the manifestation of Webflow. And I just see the amazing lights, and I see the stage, and I'm just blown away. And sometimes it takes going and being there in person to be able to really appreciate how special of a company it is. And this is my 5th or 6th time being able to come in person to Webflow conference, but to be able to come to London, to be able to see it here, I'm just blown away and humbled and really appreciative to be able to be here with all of you, to share my experience and how I've seen it evolve over the last couple of years. And just to get started, so I've been at Accel for about 10 years. Before that, I was at Google, and before that, I was at Apple. So I've been able to work with some of the best technology companies through the years, and it's been amazing to see as Webflow has evolved and turned into what I would say one of the most impressive technology companies that I have the pleasure of getting to work with. So Accel, we've been around for 40 years. As I'd mentioned before, we're a venture capital firm focused on investing with the best companies worldwide. And we always think about it as when you find an entrepreneur that has an amazing idea or has felt the pain of a problem that wants to go and solve it, we want to give that entrepreneur every unfair advantage so that they can accomplish and they can build the vision that they have. And so over the last 40 plus years, we've been able to work with some of the best companies in the world. And when I think about it, some of the best people in the world. And so getting to work with Stuart at Slack, getting to work with Mike and Scott at Atlassian, getting to truly work with some of the best entrepreneurs around the world. And you'll see in the bottom right corner, getting to work with Vlad and team has been such a blessing. And he was at my house on Sunday, and I snapped a quick picture because he was playing trains and building a train set with my 5-year-old. And it kind of all brings it back as just some of the best people in the world that are going after some of the biggest and most ambitious problems. That's what makes my job and what I get to do for a living so fulfilling and so fun. And so I thought that it would be neat to give you a very unique perspective to Webflow. I got to sit in on the breakfast this morning where we talked about a lot of the different use cases and a lot of the different enterprises. You've got to hear from product leaders. You've got to hear from technology leaders. You've got to hear from executives. But today I wanted to give you the perspective from an investor and somebody that sits back, and we have over 350 active companies that we get to work with. And so I wanted to share over the years the evolution of Webflow, how they've operated in what I would call a very tumultuous environment, and how, in my opinion, how they've been able to do it with amazing grace, but always keeping their customers at the forefront of everything they've built. So just going back, we first got to know Vlad, and I first got to know Vlad and met him in 2017. We were fortunate enough to be the first investors in Squarespace. And so we know the market very well of building online, building a digital presence. And it wasn't until 2019 when Vlad and team decided that they wanted to raise their first round of institutional venture capital. And so we got to work with them. We led their first round at Accel. And then as through the years, as they've grown and as they've raised more capital to be able to continue to serve their customers, we've led and participated in every one of those rounds throughout the year. And so this was one of the first slides that we had from our investment deck as I sat down with my partners and walked them through why we were excited about Webflow. And as I'd mentioned, we were very familiar with Squarespace. The first time somebody would need a website, the first time they would want a digital presence, they would go to Squarespace and they would build their website. And then we had, at the time, WordPress was serving over 50% of all websites were built on WordPress. And there was just this massive in-between. Do I want to pay $200 a year for very templatized, which was filling a great need for Squarespace, all the way up to I need to pay a developer $60,000 to $100,000 a year to go and build my WordPress site. And there was nothing in between. And there was this massive, massive market, and there was just kind of this hole. And when we met Vlad and we met team, building and talking about this very compelling vision. It was, how do we build folks for the, do-it-yourselfers, for the folks that wanted to prototype and build for the first time, all the way towards service providers, large agencies, in-house marketing teams, designers. So building and kind of filling this void, and it was always complementary to what we saw at Squarespace, but really going up market, and how do we disrupt the, I need to pay a developer $100,000 a year. How do I take that power and how do I bring that and put that into the hands of my teams so that they can have the same power to be able to build for the web, but do so in a way that was very cost efficient, very efficient, and give them all the power and all the tools that they would need to be able to do that. And so, amazing to see the progress that they made, but the thing that always stuck out to us in the early days of Webflow was the community. And this is all of you who were, if I look at the far right of this, very vocal on Twitter. Good thing and bad thing, but for the most part, when you get people that are that excited and that vocal, it means there really is something there. And so for us, when we saw huge market where they were kind of filling the void and where they were building with a very, very excited and impassioned set of users, that gets investors very excited. And we're always going off of pattern recognition and trying to think through who does this remind us of. And for us, this really was a similar story to Qualtrics, Atlassian, Dropbox, companies that we were very, very, very fortunate to work with. And we saw as they built these amazing companies. And that's what we saw for Webflow. And this was back in 2018, 2019, where the company was still relatively small in terms of revenue and small in terms of people, but just this amazing love and this amazing, spirit that we could feel when we spent time with the team, when we talked with customers. And so that's when we made our first investment. And it was very interesting. Now this here, this is a snapshot of the public markets, but looking at companies that were enterprise software companies, so enterprise SaaS companies, and this is their multiple over time, meaning this is how valuable the companies were being traded at, and this is a proxy as well for just the value that was being created for that sector. And so you can see from 2009 all the way up to when we made our investment in Webflow in 2019, it was very, very stable. And so multiples went anywhere from 6 times revenue up to 10 times revenue, but I would say very predictable and not boring, but just something that not a lot of change. Very stable, very predictable, and a great time to be building an enterprise software SaaS company. And if I were to show you the revenues of Webflow, they looked very, very similar. And when I talked with my partners, they had the same growth rate for about 4 years straight. It was very predictable, and it was something that we were excited about. But it was just something where there was a need, but you didn't see a lot of volatility. So you didn't see a lot of spikes. You didn't see a lot of up, a lot of down. It was pretty much just very stable, which was very nice. Now, the reason why I bring this up, because maybe some of you are smiling because you know what's going to happen here. The kind of calm before the storm and laying the foundation of the stability. Well, what hit after that? Well, we all know COVID happened, and there was about 2 weeks where I was sitting in my room thinking maybe I'm never going to have a job again, because we saw a lot of the public markets going way down. A lot of folks were selling a lot of their positions, and it was a very crazy time. But even crazier was after the sell-off and after the markets went down, we saw this just amazing, amazing rise. And this was companies that were rushing online to build a website, to have a presence, looking for monetization. And we saw the index of SaaS companies just skyrocket. And so as you can see here, we were right around 6 to 8 times revenue was how a lot of these companies were valued. And that shot up almost in about 6 months, all the way up to 20 times. And so the volatility was just off the charts. And this was amazing to see with the Webflow team, how they responded, because everybody was coming online. Folks were looking for websites. Enterprises and marketing teams were looking for ways that they could be, that they could commercialize their products more. They were looking for more tools. They were looking for, how can I make sure to reach the most amount of people as possible? And so on this backdrop of just this meteoric rise in value creation, what was happening in software and in the public markets, Webflow responded. And so where previously, and many of you know this as users of the products, going from designer to CMS, the do-it-yourselfers, to really putting more powerful tools in the hands of enterprises and folks, so that they could find and they could respond to this ever-rising need for monetization, commercialization, and reach, and getting in the hands of more customers. Webflow launched hosting, launched analytics, launched the ability to optimize those websites, as well as launching an ecosystem around it. And so for investors, as we partnered with Vlad and with team to just see this amazing response to the market, was awesome. It was like something we didn't see across the rest of our portfolio, but responding to the needs of the market and responding to this rise that we saw for folks that were really needing and looking for more solutions. Now, I bring this up because we're talking about the stability, and then we're talking about the rise, and most of us know what we've been feeling over the last 2 years. There was then this amazing drop-off where budgets were becoming a lot tighter. CIOs and execs were looking to cut software. Earlier this morning, we were hearing about just the software fatigue. And all of you have probably seen this. When you saw the meteoric rise, the number of BDRs and the number of emails that you were getting your inboxes for. Try this tool, use this tool, try these out. So many. Where when interest rates started to rise back up again and capital was no longer as free, and investors were pulling back out of the market, and you saw this kind of crash come back down to really the levels that we were at pre-COVID in terms of value creation and the multiples and the valuation that we're seeing on these companies, there was also the pullback on budgets. And so companies were looking to become more efficient. So whereas before it was spend, 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 how do we make sure we get more reach? How do we get in front of as many people as possible? Now there was a completely different mindset for software buyers and for folks as they were looking for these tools. And probably for many of you, as you were thinking of the pressures that you were getting from your companies, as they were asking you to do more with less. And we saw that as things were coming way back down. And that's why I've been so impressed with the Webflow team, as a lot of you have been seeing it. Launching collaboration, launching tools to help you to continue to analyze, to get more of the power of Webflow and more of the things that you would need, whether it was development resources or whether it was more from analytics and data, pulling those into the hands of marketers and designers and all folks across the enterprise so that we could all be more efficient with what we had. And it was awesome to see them respond to that. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because most of the revenue from our portfolio and our companies also looks a lot like this, where companies were rising up very quickly and then coming down very quickly. It's very similar to a lot of the AI companies, where they're going to get a lot of quick bumps and people are going to rush, and then they're fleeting and they're going away. the amazing thing that we saw with Webflow is their just ability to adapt to the market and provide solutions for their customers, knowing what customers were looking for, putting them first, and we saw them just continue to rise through the years. Whatever was thrown at them or whatever the market condition, continued to be adaptable and to continue to rise with customers and with the market. And so when I think about that, we've almost returned now back to those levels that were pre-COVID when we think about the market. And I think about where Webflow sits, and it's just been awesome to see. So the question now is, what's next? If I knew what the public markets were going to look like, I would be a much better investor than I am, and I wish that I did, but we don't know. And so the nice thing is we have the groundworks for what Webflow has been launching and their product vision. And it's been great to see the response with WXP. Over the years, as the company, as Webflow, has continued to tailor more towards the enterprise, and as they've been able to go up market and serve some of those larger customers, they've been able to launch these additional products to be able to serve the needs of all of you and to be able to serve those customers. So things now like localization, things to be able to give you more control and versioning and restrictive limits for the different teams that you have. Those are the ways that they've been able to respond and to be able to be put in the forefront for what's been happening in the market. So I think about that in terms of starting with design and prototyping, moving into hosting and analytics, more into enterprise and localization, and then, as I had mentioned, going into WXP. So it really did complete the vision that we had originally for Webflow, as they had this amazing space to go after, and as they were going up market to compete with WordPress, it's been amazing to see the reach, and what I would say has really fulfilled that vision to step in and to be able to serve those larger customers, to be able to replace the higher end, whether that's WordPress or Adobe, and really been able to do that and make those product advancements and the evolution. And it shows with the reach. As it showed previously, they had 1 million users on the platform, now with over 3.5 million, with 100,000 paid users, and with customers in 190 countries. So for us, that's just unbelievable to see what's been happening. Now, this, as I go back, I want to call out that this is not the only thing that has been happening in the public markets. Now, as you all have probably been hearing about over the last couple days and last couple months with Webflow, and then if I take it to the broader market, there's been this small trend that has popped up that has also been hitting in the public markets and the private markets, which has been AI. And so if I look at, this is the dollars of venture capital that went into SaaS and cloud companies over the last 10 years. You can see it almost mirrors the value in what you were seeing in the public markets, where with COVID and after COVID, there was an amazing spike, but then this massive pullback, and for 2023 and 2024, very similar levels of venture capital investment to what was happening those 6 years prior leading up to COVID. But the other thing that most folks may know, but don't show up in this chart, is when you layer on AI and generative AI investments over those years, we're actually at higher levels than what we were pre-COVID. Now, it doesn't really make sense, because if I ask most of you in the room about your budgets and your teams, there's still the ask to do more with less. There's still pressure on profitability, and there's still pressure for making sure that you can continue to operate, but not like it was before COVID times. We're under more pressure than we were before. And so I bring that up because there's a lot that's going in on AI as the hope to be able to bridge that gap and to be able to make it so that we're more efficient with the tools that we have and what we're able to do with the budgets and the dollars that we have. So I thought it'd be interesting to walk through kind of the different layers of AI and where we're seeing the investment, and then how that ties back to Webflow. So many of you have probably heard about these foundational models. Many of you have probably used them. OpenAI. There have been a lot of dollars that have been going in to those foundation models. There's a lot around just enrichment and the ops layer to make these things possible. And then where at Accel as well as Webflow, where we're most excited is this at the very top, which is the application layer. There is so much capital that goes into these foundation models to train them, to be able to bring more capabilities to what we're able to do. But now a lot of the value that's being created is actually happening on the application layer. So once you have these very, very powerful models, whether it's on text generation or image generation or what you're able to do with reasoning, what do you want to do with those? What's the logic that you build on top? What is the workflow that you build on top? And what are these applications that are being built? And over the first, I would say, 2 years, most of the dollars went into these foundation models to get trained and to get started and to get built up. Now, most of the dollars and most of the value is happening on this application layer, which gets us really excited because, as I talked about, with the backdrop of Webflow being adaptable and where they've really responded to what's been happening in the market, that's what's happening now, and that's what we're seeing at Webflow, with their ability to launch not just WXP, but to be able to launch their AI products. And a lot of you have seen those over the last couple days as they've announced the products that they have. But being able to have a co-pilot to be able to help you in every aspect of Webflow. And then what I get most excited about with AI, which is on the ideation and the creation side. Most of us start with this blank space, white page, and it's very hard to get started. And what I've seen is that with AI, one of the things that is most alleviated is just that barrier to get started. And I've loved seeing that with Webflow on whether it's starting a new page or whether that's bringing in a new concept. AI has been the thing to be able to help and get that started. And so when I put that on the backdrop of everything that's been happening in the public markets and the private markets, I'm very excited to see that once again, Webflow has responded with their product and their vision and the tools that they're creating for all of us. And so as I had mentioned, what they're doing on AI, weaving it into pretty much every aspect of the product, weaving it into all the different layers, and then also all the different personas. When we see AI products that are getting launched in different companies, they're very targeted for a specific persona. But the thing that I really appreciated about Webflow is that whether you're a designer, a DIYer, whether you're a marketer, or even as we're thinking about developers, how do we make sure that we can build AI products and how do we build companions for everybody that would be using Webflow? And so I go back here, and I keep going back to this chart because I think it's so illustrative of the progress that Webflow has made over the years. And a very, very, very stable company, and they had done an incredible job. And I think about Vlad and Bryant and Sergi and what they were able to accomplish over those 8 years before we ended up partnering with them, just set such an amazing base and foundation for these wild years and these just swings of up and down. But it's been amazing to see as they've been able to continue to work with customers, find out what customers want, the things that they're looking for, and build the products that set them up for the future. And that's what gets me so excited about where the evolution has come and how they've been able to bring all these things together, to go from design to enterprise to WXP, which they've talked about, and now to the AI products. And it's such a great manifestation of what we've seen as the backdrop of a very tumultuous public and private market with investing and seeing the ups and downs. It's awesome to see that there is a platform like Webflow that is just stable and continues to serve its customers exactly how they're looking for it. So with that, I will open it up for any Q&A. Happy to answer any questions about our journey with Webflow or about the product or what we've been seeing in the market. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just quick question about Webflow and Do you guys plan to take them public anytime soon? And can you share any info on that?
That's a great question. So the best thing when you invest in an incredible company is you have options. And so the nice thing, and it was funny because I was talking with Linda this morning, and we were just talking about the future. And when I think about Webflow, they've done so much of the work over the last 2 years where there's been a lot of change and a lot of ups and downs, and they've really just set the foundation. So the nice thing for me is that will be an option for Webflow, and that will be something that they will be able to do, but it will be on their own time. The thing that I've loved about them, they're a very just personal company, and it's one of the most humane companies that I work with. So I know that when they decide, or if they decide that they do want to go public, they'll do it in their way, and I know that they'll do it in a great way. So non-answer for you.
Hi there, how's it going? I guess a big question for me was like significant inflection points in the growth. I'd just be interested if there's anything that you could share, or even Vlad can share around what those moments were. Were they, go-to-market approaches? Was it just a time in, what the market was doing that really made a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's been several that we've seen in terms of inflection points. Some have been company, and then some have been market and backdrop. I can't stress enough just how prepared the team was going into COVID. I would say from a company and a personnel perspective, but as well as a product perspective. Like if you think about it, everybody was working remote, and everybody was trying to have an online presence. And so, and you wanted more flexibility to be able to build and to be able to express yourself, but you didn't want to have to go out and pay a designer. Or sorry, you didn't want to have to go out and pay a developer to build for you. And so this tool was, best place, right time. And that was a huge inflection that we saw in the business. But I can't stress it enough, that was 8 years of, and as Vlad has recounted his story of, building on the side, starting, stopping, not knowing if the company was going to be a success or not. Just 8 years of building, and then this amazing time where everybody is trying to get online, everybody is trying to build as fast as possible, as big of reach as possible. That was an amazing inflection for what we saw at the company. The other one that I'd say is, as Vlad and Linda and team have thought about how do they get into the hands of more people, it's not from a revenue perspective. In their minds, it really is for how do we give superpowers for building the web to as many people as possible. That also started when they launched their enterprise sales team. And it wasn't just from a how do we have more revenue and how do we grow this. It was there are folks that are frustrated as they're building with a enterprise CMS that's not flexible. And how do we make sure and give those folks the same experience of having Webflow and having it in the enterprise? They're either using it on their marketing team or they're using it and they're trying, but how do we get more of a collaborative effort to bring that into the enterprise? And that was another amazing inflection on the business. And so as they were thinking about how do they sell this, how do they package it, what are the features, how do we make sure that there's the value for the enterprise, that was another amazing unlock that they've seen over the last 7 years since we've been involved with the team. Yeah.
Less a question and more of a comment. I love that you chose to use a photo of me pre-rebrand before I started to wear glasses, and the Webflow logo pre-rebrand. We got to get those updated. One thing I just wanted to, that was mostly a joke.
Is there a question?
Yeah, I wanted to add to your answer.
Okay.
And add one more inflection point was a few years before we partnered with Accel was when we really started to lean into our freelancer and agency motion to enable our partners to build up their own businesses. And that started to become almost like a sales channel for us where these amazing freelancers and agencies started bringing us business. And then those businesses were the ones who were telling us, hey, we're kind of graduating past what Webflow is right now. We need more features, we need more collaboration, more controls. That led us to wanting to create a sales motion and upmarket motion. So I don't think without that, and of course there were like product improvements like the CMS that put us on the map. But I would say that agency motion led us to our upmarket enterprise motion that helped us prepare for COVID.
I just want to point out, I wanted to make sure that folks knew that we were partnered with the company before the rebrand. So yeah, we're part of the OG, we're part of the beginning. So make sure you have the pictures of Lad, pre-glasses, and the logo before. Any other questions? All right, awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you all for being with me. Yeah.